In this video, I'm going to show you how I made 80% in 80 days. Using the poor man's covered call, writing covered calls, we made 80% cash on cash in 80 days. I'm going to show it to you. Stick around. I know you're going to like this one. Hey, welcome back everyone. It is time for another red hot cover call video. Well, that's right. We're going to talk about how I made 80% in 80 days. I'm going to show you that end result and how much we made, but I'm also going to show you how I did it. You know, I have to tell you something. I just went to the Money Show in Las Vegas, and there are many people giving seminars and presentations. And I'll tell you what, I had a couple seminars I wanted to watch. And when I watched them, what I found, most of the experts do the same thing we do. They're just a little more successful because maybe they've had a little more experience and they've gone through the trial and error and they've learned from it. See, I've always told you, you do one trade, two trades, next thing you know, you don't need me. You're going to learn, and along the way, you're going to stumble. You're going to fall. You're going to get back up. That's how I learned. And I'll never forget, some of my biggest failures turned out to be some of my greatest successes because you learn from your failures, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to learn. We want to get closer to it because then we'll do it. See, that's the difference between winners and just people sitting on the bench. People will go out, learn it, sit on the bench, never do it. See, let's learn it and then let's do it. Get off the bench, get in the game. You don't have to just jump into the deep end. You can do this. Trust me, you can do this. Those people at the Money Show did not say anything that's different than what I show you right here on YouTube for free. And I'll tell you what, and my members see so much more. In fact, they saw all of what you're about to see. But look, the point is, you might think this is hard. You might think you need to be an expert to do this. You don't. Okay? All those people that stood on that stage, they had to start somewhere. And that's where you're at right now. You know, I'm where I'm at through trial and error and many years of experience. I put in the homework like you're doing right now. I want you to stick around. I want you to stay in the game so you get in the game. All right? I want you to get motivated, get inspired, because I want you to make your next great trade. Now look, let's talk about this. If you like anything you hear today, I absolutely need you to subscribe to the channel. It's right there and it's free. And hey, look, if you like this video today, bang that like button. It lets me know you like what I'm doing. Now what I'm doing is this. I am showing you how I made 80% in 80 days. We're using the poor man's covered call, and I wrote covered calls. And we used yin. I'm going to talk about the stock I used. Yin is a 3x leveraged ETF to the large cap China stocks. If you've been watching my recent videos, you know I got involved with yin, and there's a reason behind it. I'm going to briefly explain that when we go to the chart, because on the chart, I'm going to show you what I saw and what I've done. But here's the deal. Using the poor man's covered call, I used a Leaps call option in lieu of owning the shares. We're going to simulate stock ownership when we buy a Leaps call option, giving us the paper to buy somebody's shares at a price we pick. Now we're going to have that paper. Now that paper gives us the right to buy somebody's shares. That's what I did. I paid this person when I originally started the trade $6.40 to have the right, but not the obligation, to take his shares away from him at 15. Now, when I have that Leaps call option in hand, and yes, I did buy this option, meaning I can take his shares at any point between now and April 23rd. Well, the purpose of this is not to take his shares, but I own that paper that says I can take his shares at 15. Well, I set up my brokerage account where I can do calendar spreads. Calendar spreads is the fancy name for the poor man's covered call, where we simulate stock ownership by buying a piece of paper, this being the April 2024 Leaps call option, the 15 strike. I can now write near-term covered calls as if I own the stock. That's just how it works. We are writing calls against a Leaps call option. I don't own the shares. A lot of people can't get this, but what I want to tell you is this. When you buy the Leaps call option, in this case the 15 strike, I have the right to buy this guy's shares. So when I go back to my brokerage says, hey, you could buy this guy's shares at 15 and you have till April 2024 to do it. So go ahead. You have simulated stock ownership. Now, let's talk about that simulated stock ownership. Because I paid him $6.40, I only invested $6,400 because I did 10 contracts. Let's do the math. Instead of buying 1,000 shares when yen was trading at 20, that would have cost me $20,000. I bought the right to buy this person's shares at 15. I only paid $6.40 for that, and I paid a total of $6,400 to have this simulated stock ownership on paper. Okay? Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to write near-term covered calls. The poor man's covered call is called the poor man's covered call because I don't have to pony up $20,000 on the front end to buy shares. What I'm doing is I'm using a Leaps call option in lieu of buying the shares and only paid $6,400. That's the poor man's part of this. One last thing before I move forward. At the end of this trade, April 2024, what's the worst case scenario in this trade? If we get to April 2024 and I still own the Leaps call option, I can then sell the Leaps call option, make a profit or take a loss, or I just buy this guy's shares at 15 and then I own the shares. So I hope that removes some of the fear and worry and things like that. Because a lot of people say, oh, I'll never touch the poor man's covered call because it's so risky. But what are we doing? We're basically just buying the right to buy somebody's shares. And if we do it, we do it. If we don't, we don't. And that's where this trade comes in because we did not go to April 2024. And in fact, I did not take ownership of the shares, and I ended up selling the Leaps call option for a profit. Let's go ahead and talk about this because this should excite anyone interested in writing covered calls and generating high returns based on the money invested. Now, we are talking yen. Yen is that 3x leveraged ETF to the large cap China stocks. If you know how ETFs work and how they follow indexes, usually what happens is a company will create an ETF that follows the index, the Dow 30, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ. We all know the tickers, the QQQ, the SPY. What other companies will do is they will come in and say, hey, that ETF, we're going to go ahead and make a 3x leverage version of that. And that 3x leverage version will move 3x what the 1-for-1 ETF will move. When I originally bought the Spider ETF for the financials, back last year when the financials got crushed, I went ahead and thought, hey, I want to invest in the financials, but I'm not sure which big financial is going to move higher. So I bought the Spider, the ETF Spider for the financials. Well, then I found the 3x leverage version of that, and that was FAS. And if you remember FAS, we use that for covered calls, juicing up our premiums, literally making 3 times what we could with the Spider. For the members, that's what I did. I actually bought 100 shares of the Spider ETF for the financials and wrote a covered call. Then I bought 100 shares of FAS, wrote a covered call. 3x the leverage, 3x the premiums. But what are we using? And somebody would say 3x the risk. Well, what I'm going to say is it's 3x the volatility. We're just using an index. It just happens to be 3x leverage. That volatility is pure gold for options traders. If you don't have any volatilities, you don't have any premiums that pay anything that get you up in the morning. I did a video where I talked about Alibaba. And I said, look, every time Alibaba gets down near 70, this is a great opportunity to get involved with Alibaba. So I went ahead and I did a poor man's covered call on Alibaba. And that's when I started doing my research on these 3x leveraged ETFs to the different indexes for which Alibaba is in. I still have that poor man's covered call on Alibaba, and I've written 3 covered calls using a Leaps call option, generating some 20% if I cash out right now. Alibaba hasn't moved a nickel since I got involved. You have to understand, I got involved with Alibaba around $76. It hasn't moved a nickel. I've written 3 covered calls, and my cost basis was a mere fraction of what I would have had to pay because I bought that Leaps call option. So now, fast forward to yen. Yen is a stock that covers that, right? It's the 3x leverage ETF to the China large caps. If I believe the China large caps are falling off. It's a great opportunity to get involved lower than higher. We've talked about this. Notice, Keltner channel mid, stocks trading range. We always want to get involved when it's trading near the mid and under. It's more favorable chance it'll go higher. In the case of yen, that hasn't been the case. But do notice it will trade in a bottom cycle and find its way back to the mid. And we will play that. Now, what I did was this. As yen would fall, because remember, I got involved when yen is trading at 20. Yen would continue to fall once I started trading it. I'd buy the Leaps call options. We would then write the covered calls. Yen is falling. I'm buying those options back, and we're writing another covered call. Yen is falling. Finally, I decided, look, I'm going to dollar cost average this sucker. I am not going to wait until yen gets back to 20. So when it was trading at 18 bucks, I bought another Leaps call option, 15 strike. We did it 4 times, controlling 4,000 shares. And you could see, as we wrote covered calls, as it kept falling, we're generating all of that huge premium. So what we're doing is we're reducing our cost basis because we're getting more shares. I'm able to get out of this trade much quicker. You can see yen has not gotten to 20 yet. So had I bought the shares and done all of this, we're still not able to get out of this trade. Well, because I kept dollar costing, which if you'd have dollar costed with the stock, you'd have been able to get out as well. But you're not making the cash on cash percentage gains if you buy the stock and write these covered calls. You would have invested much more money. In fact, do the math. You would have had to invest $20,000 for the first purchase, $18,000 for the second purchase, $17,000 for the third, and then $15,000 for the fourth. You would have had to invest $70,000 to be at this point right here if you had dollar cost this position. Let's take a look at where I'm at. And you can see all I've invested in this position is $15,000. In fact, that's less than buying 1,000 shares. So cash on cash, this is unbelievable. Because what we do is we end up writing some 7 covered calls. And not only do we write 7 covered calls, we generate $7,800 in premium. And this is unbelievable, right? This is that monthly cash flow coming in. We only invested $15,000. We're generating $1,400 a month or every trade. What this allows is me to get out of this trade a little bit earlier. And you can see when we run these numbers, it's ridiculous. Because when we dollar cost all of our Leaps call options. And when we start this last trade right here, my Leaps call option is here. And as the stock moves to 19 above my strike price, well, this Leaps call option moves with it. We are able to get out of this trade when my Leaps call option is trading at 548, making this a green trade. And you could see we make some $12,000. Let's go to the members write-up on this just so you could see this a little clearer. So this is what the members get. If you're interested, I got a membership. CPTdashboard.com, click upgraded dashboard. You're getting all my real-time trades in and out. I give you commentary. I do videos there that you don't see here. And guess what? We do videos on poor man's covered call management that you don't see here. You're getting more advanced information coming from me, seeing the world through my eyes. All you have to do is sign up for my membership. I got a 1 free month waiting for you. CPTdashboard.com, click upgraded dashboard, get your 1 free month. Members are signing up because we're talking about the poor man's covered call, where we only have to have a little bit of money, but we can generate real returns as if we own the shares, just like this trade. This is a more advanced way to write covered calls, and we don't actually own the shares. Now, we do own that Leaps call option that protects us in this trade. Don't be doing this with naked call options and buying them like that, because you will absolutely get kicked in the nads if this thing goes the wrong way. When we have that Leaps call option, we have protection because yen can fly off the charts to 119 bucks. We have the right to buy some cat's shares at 15. That gives us the protection. Now here's the deal. Yen had broken through my strike price and it had moved $1.80 higher. We are not going to add $1.80 to this trade, particularly when we can get out of this trade at 80% cash on cash, 12 grand on the table. I am not going to add to this trade. Somebody will say, well, you can roll it for more premium. Well, when you add $1.80 to the trade and yen has traded between 14 and 19 in the past 80 days, we're not going to do that. That does not make sense. I would rather cash out, put money on the table, and then we come back and use that 15,000 and maybe do another trade on yen, but we start fresh. I do not want to buy back these options and then add to my cost basis. So that's how we do it, and that's why I took 1 in the hand versus 2 in the bush. Buying back options when they've moved much higher than my strike price means I have to add all of that intrinsic value to the trade. And what if yen gasses out? It's at 19, it moved from 14, now it gasses out. I'm up here with a higher cost basis. I feel like I have made a horrible decision, yet I've done all these good things. See, one bad move can screw up everything. That's why we make good decisions. That's why we learn and we get our experience. Because I'm going to tell you right now, rookie traders right now would listen to everybody on YouTube and say, oh, buy this back and roll it forward for another credit. No. You have to understand, this has an April 2024 deadline and we're moving into March. If this thing moves down to 14, I'm not going to have enough time for my Leaps call option to find its way back up profitable again. We take the money and we run. We run maybe to another yen trade, but we're definitely running away from this one. And the final numbers look like this. This should excite you. This should motivate you. On the Leaps call option itself, I made $4,200 or $2,800 on that investment. Writing all of those fat covered calls, we pocketed $7,800. Look, if you lose money on your Leaps call option, this entire trade could be so profitable just writing covered calls. Look at this. I made $7,800 on a $15,000 investment. That's if my Leaps call option does not make a nickel. And that's still big bucks, some 51%. Well, when we total up the 2 trades, you can see we're going to pocket some $12,000 or 80% cash on cash. The poor man's covered call allows you to buy Leaps call options for protection, giving us the right to buy somebody's shares at a strike price. Now here's the deal. You're all about ready to click away from the video, but here's the most important thing you need to know. On my website, I have a free version of the poor man's covered call tracker. Whether you use the tracker or not doesn't matter. In that tracker is your initial trade setup. You have to plug in all these numbers for your first trade. If you do not do that, you will find yourself paying way too much money in time value for your Leaps call option. And then you don't even know where you're at when you write your first covered call, and you don't know where you're at profitability-wise if your shares are taken. Go to my website, cptdashboard.com, and if anything, get your free Poor Man's Covered Call Tracker and use that initial trade setup. Now, you're probably sitting there saying, hey, you don't even use your own Poor Man's Covered Call Tracker. You just want us to go to your website so you get that one free offer for my membership. Well, you'd be wrong. I use this all the time. And in fact, the PayPal trade I just did and I sent to the members, I use the initial trade setup. At the end of the day, you absolutely have to know your numbers to be profitable in this game. Remember that money show I talked about? Nobody there is talking about how they run their numbers. But that's the very first thing I'm going to tell you. We need to have the numbers in front of us so we can make great decisions. Look, I want you to go to cptdashboard.com, click Upgraded Dashboard, get your 1 free month offer. So real quick, here is my tracker for this yen trade. You can see where I plug in all of my Leaps call options purchased, which are dollar cost average. I plug in all of the covered calls that I wrote. You can see this is my total income tracker where I track all of this information. This is my P&L for this trade. Whether I made money or not, we plug it in. That's what the total income tracker is all about. Go to my website, get the total income tracker, and plug in your information for these trades. Use it. You place the trade, you close the trade, move it down, it logs everything for you. It's in, it's out, you move on to the next trade. I provide free tools on my website. Use them. Please do not try to do all of these covered calls, poor man's covered calls, and cash secure puts without having the numbers in front of you. Hey, look, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to post something on Facebook tonight, and I think if you're a Facebook member, go to the Real CPT Dashboard, follow my Facebook page. You're going to love it because I'm going to show you how much money I've made in February. And I'll tell you what, it's going to blow your mind. Hey, look, be safe, be healthy, most important, be lucky. Until next time, may all your covered calls be profitable.